Bisi's heart pounded as she stepped off the red double-decker bus and into central London's evening buzz. She was 43, freshly arrived from Nigeria, fleeing a heartbreak that still felt raw. For 7 years, she had poured herself into a relationship she believed would end in marriage, only to discover his betrayal. Her family's words still echoed, labeling her an old maid and urging her to settle. Tired of their pity and the village whispers about her single status, she had risked everything for the chance to rebuild her life in the United Kingdom. She dragged 2 suitcases and her cooking diploma through unfamiliar streets, determined to prove that neither age nor heartbreak defined her. Finding a cramped flat in Peckham, she felt a glimmer of triumph. Peckham's West African community soothed her homesickness, with neighbors speaking Yoruba and market stores brimming with the spices she had grown up using. Yet calls from home continued, her mother reminding her she wasn't getting younger, her relatives warning she'd regret living without a husband. Days later, while scanning local notice boards, she spotted a curious flyer. Private chef wanted, discretion required, competitive salary, odd working hours. It offered precisely the lift she needed: better pay, flexible terms, and the possibility of burying her heartbreak in the kitchen work. London still loomed around her, busy and cold, but the prospect of using her culinary skills stoked her hope. Maybe, if she could land this strange but promising job, she could silence those hurtful old maid murmurs that haunted her from home. Gathering her nerve, she walked through the glass and steel building named on the flyer, not realizing that stepping inside for a single interview would pull her into midnight feasts, secret identities, and an unexpected pathway towards redemption. Stepping into the lobby of W. Whittaker and Associates felt like entering another world. Polished floors reflected bright lights, and a curt receptionist directed Bisi to a private elevator. Nerves churned in her stomach as she recalled the flyer's words: competitive salary, odd working hours. She needed this job. Shame and heartbreak refused to let her fail. Upstairs, Mrs. Boyle awaited, elegant, grey-haired, and with eyes that scrutinized Bisi's every answer. She inquired about Bisi's training, her ability to handle stress, and her comfort with working at midnight 6 days a week. The pay Mrs. Boyle mentioned sounded astonishing, far more than Bisi had dared hope for. With it, she could cover rent, maybe send money home to quiet her family's critics. Cautiously, Bisi answered each question, explaining how she studied both Nigerian and Western cuisine, how she thrived under pressure. Mrs. Boyle's final comment, "We'll be in touch," left Bisi unsure if she had succeeded or floundered. Then 3 days passed in silence. Old anxieties returned, conjuring images of her boyfriend's infidelity and her family's sighs about her marital status. She felt the tension mounting until, at last, her phone rang. Mrs. Boyle offered her the private chef position. Bisi was instructed to report in the late evening to prepare elaborate meals for serving exactly at midnight, and to guard what she witnessed with absolute secrecy. Though it all seemed absurd, who needed banquets in the dead of night? Bisi clung to the possibility of renewed confidence and the chance to forget the humiliations she had fled. On her first shift, she found herself in a stunning penthouse kitchen overlooking the twinkling London skyline. Cooking through the night was surreal, but at dawn, empty plates and a simple "well done" told her she might have found the elusive fresh start she craved. As weeks passed, Bisi discovered the job's true challenge. Sleeping days and cooking nights disoriented her, but the pay was reliable. The staff, mostly tight-lipped, whispered about Mr. Whittaker, who apparently avoided daylight. Some joked he was a vampire, others hinted at an old curse, and one butler murmured that a forefather had died at sunrise when a midnight feast was skipped. Bisi dismissed the wilder gossip, yet sensed layers of secrecy. Each evening she toiled on new dishes, blending Yoruba pepper blends with European presentations, her creativity blossoming in the quiet. Her mother's phone calls remained a source of stress. "You're 43, Bisi. Time doesn't stand still." Bisi deflected, describing London's bustle, but never admitting she worked at night for a mysterious man. The staff quarters under the penthouse offered few clues. She gleaned only that Mr. Whittaker was private, reclusive, and extremely wealthy. Still, the odd schedule allowed Bisi to refine her culinary flair, forging imaginative creations to impress unseen diners. One night, while tidying up, she came across a forgotten photo labeled W.A. White, 1989, depicting a grand English manor. The name didn't match Whittaker. Curious, Bisi showed it to Mrs. Boyle, whose rigid posture and forced politeness suggested Bisi had stumbled onto something forbidden. That reaction sparked Bisi's determination to investigate further. Was Mr. Whittaker once white, or was this a relative? Bisi's heartbreak had taught her to question facades. If her ex-boyfriend's sweet promises masked betrayal, perhaps Mr. Whittaker's elegant penthouse concealed similar truths. Balancing curiosity with caution, Bisi resolved not to jeopardize her much-needed income. But each mid-morning, drifting to sleep as the sun rose, she couldn't ignore the mounting desire to peer behind the midnight diners and the man orchestrating them all. A few nights later, Bisi's nerves spiked when Mrs. Boyle summoned her to Mr. Whittaker's study. Entering a lavish room lined with heavy drapes, she finally laid eyes on the elusive figure, tall, refined, with an undercurrent of weariness in his gaze. He praised her unique fusion dishes, commending how she blended African spices with Western methods. Bisi's cheeks warmed at such high praise from a man rumored to fear daylight. She itched to ask why he insisted on these nocturnal feasts, but Mrs. Boyle deftly ended the meeting before Bisi could speak. Later, while cleaning up after a smaller party, Bisi found another clue, a photograph from the same manor, again labeled W.A. White. Intrigued, she handed it to Mrs. Boyle, who nearly snatched it away. The hush in the penthouse, the loaded glances among staff, and Mr. Whittaker's reticence all pointed to secrets. Bisi's background also made her worry. She had once believed in her cheating boyfriend's promises only to be blindsided. Now she recognized the signs of hidden truths. One evening, she overheard a muffled argument in a corridor in which someone mentioned Walter A. White. Mrs. Boyle's sharp rebuke, "Never say that name again," made Bisi's heart race. Could Mr. Whittaker's real name be Walter White? If so, why the alias? Bisi recalled how her ex had pretended fidelity while betraying her trust. Liars could destroy lives. Still, Bisi needed this high-paying job to survive in London and avoid returning home shamed. Torn between suspicion and self-preservation, she decided to watch and wait, gathering pieces of a puzzle that might explain both the midnight dinner's exclusivity and her employer's haunted demeanor. She could almost feel that revelations loomed, twisting her once simple chef's duties into a tangled quest for hidden truths. Bisi's midnight existence continued, but her mother's insistent calls about marriage weighed on her heart. "You are 43. Your cousins have children." The voice on the phone reminded her. Bisi stayed tight-lipped about her hush-hush job, unwilling to describe lavish suppers served at odd hours for a man guarding his privacy with her near-fanatical zeal. While anxiety gnawed, a friendly butler named Marcus offered small kindnesses, extra tea, a sympathetic ear. Bisi suspected he knew some of Mr. Whittaker's secrets but chose not to pry. One night, Bisi nearly collided with Mr. Whittaker in a rarely used hallway. He invited her to a quiet lounge for tea and in a calm but pained voice, asked if she was adjusting to London life. She felt compelled to share glimpses of her heartbreak, explaining she fled Nigeria to escape gossip and disappointment. Mr. Whittaker offered gentle sympathy, echoing that society's judgments could be harsh. She yearned to express him about his midnight routine and the whispered name Walter A. White. But his guarded demeanor stopped her. Still, their exchange hinted at shared wounds, forging a fragile bond that made Bisi's questions burn brighter. Days later, in a moment of daring, Bisi snuck into the penthouse library. Amid thick tomes and neatly labeled files, she discovered a folder titled Land Holdings, Nigeria. Its contents froze her blood. Documents referencing white family members and Adebayo descendants, her own lineage. Pictures showed men shaking hands in deals that had apparently transferred property under questionable terms. Stunned, she realized that Mr. Whitaker was Walter A. White. He might be tied to the very injustices her father had raged about: stolen farmland and broken promises. Bisi's breath caught as she grasped how deeply her new employer's hidden identity might intersect with her own family's painful past. Unable to contain her turmoil, Bisi confronted Mr. Whitaker the following night. With shaking hands, she produced the Nigerian land documents and demanded to know if he was indeed Walter Adetokunbo White. His ashen face confirmed it. In a subdued voice, he confessed he had changed his name to Whitaker to fit into elite British circles that ridiculed African heritage. He claimed ignorance of the details concerning her family's land, but offered a broken apology. Bisi, recalling her father's anguished tales about stolen property, felt fury and betrayal roll inside her. She also recalled her own heartbreak when her ex's infidelity surfaced. Lies hurt, no matter the form. In the aftermath, tension gripped the penthouse. Bisi still needed her paycheck, but found herself stiffly polite, refusing to meet Walter's eyes. Memories of her father's voice, "We lost everything to foreigners who cared nothing for us," echoed ominously. Even as Walter tried to approach her, professing remorse and a willingness to investigate the old injustices, Bisi couldn't decide if his sincerity was genuine or a ruse. Meanwhile, rumors exploded outside the penthouse. Word spread that Mr. Whitaker might be concealing his true ancestry. A rival CEO pounced on the scandal, hoping to ruin Walter's reputation. Board members at Whitaker and Associates panicked about potential fallout, and Walter, pale from stress, confided in Bisi that he feared exposure would destroy him. She recognized the sensation of feeling cornered. When her ex's betrayal became public, she too faced merciless scrutiny. Despite her simmering anger, a flicker of sympathy stirred. If Walter lost everything, her family might never reclaim the land. Torn between loyalty to her father's memory and a glimmer of empathy for Walter, Bisi decided to see if a better outcome was possible before deciding whether to stay or walk away. Determined to fight the looming scandal, Walter arranged a private meeting with Bisi, pleading for her help. He explained how, as a boy, he watched his father renounce anything tied to their Nigerian roots, fearing it would sabotage their climb in Britain's snobbish business world. The midnight dinners, he elaborated, served as his personal shield. By hosting gatherings at odd hours and restricting invitations to a trusted inner circle, he minimized public's curiosity. Bisi, recalling how vicious rumors back home labeled her too old to marry, felt a trace of understanding. Society's judgment had wounded them both, albeit differently. Walter confessed he knew little about the land theft itself, but wanted to atone. He then hinted at a deeper family legend, a curse demanding midnight feast to appease old spirits, lest tragedy strike at sunrise. While Bisi wasn't sure about curses, she sensed that secrecy defined Walter's life. Remembering how secrets wrecked her own past relationship, she offered cautious assistance. Their uneasy alliance strengthened as a rival CEO advanced forged documents accusing Walter of exploiting African contacts. A board meeting was called, and Bisi helped translate Yoruba papers proving Walter's philanthropic work in Nigeria. At that tenth session, suspicious shareholders questioned Walter's hidden heritage and name change. Though unsettled, Walter calmly explained the prejudice he encountered and how the midnight feast secured his privacy. Bisi's translations exposed the CEO's forgeries, restoring some faith in Walter's leadership. By a wide margin, the board refused to remove him. Exhausted but relieved, Bisi contemplated her own motivations. Helping Walter felt like a step towards potentially recovering her family's land, but also stirred compassion. She began to wonder if trust and healing could emerge from this collision of heartbreak, betrayal, and family debts older than either of them could fully grasp. Emboldened by surviving the board's scrutiny, Walter proposed making real amends to Bisi's family. They would contact her relatives, discuss the stolen land, and try to negotiate compensation or return. Bisi envisioned her aunt's reaction. Certain skepticism and fury would erupt. But she remembered her father's dying regrets, how he never saw justice for what the White family allegedly stole. Heart-pounding, Bisi made the call home. Her aunt listened in silence as Walter introduced himself, stumbling through polite Yoruba phrases. Shocked but intrigued, her aunt demanded face-to-face talks. Bisi braced herself to return to Nigeria, the place she had fled after heartbreak and scornful gossip. Still reeling from the revelations linking her boss to her father's suffering, Bisi realized this trip meant confronting old wounds on every front. Walter, too, seemed anxious. Exposing his ancestry after years of concealment wasn't easy. During the flight, they talked more openly. Bisi spoke of the fiancé who cheated on her, the shame she felt in her village. Walter described the constant fear that revealing his roots could topple his empire. Curiously, shared vulnerability forged the bond. They landed in Lagos, greeted by humid air and riotous sounds. Bisi's aunt housed them in a modest guest house near Ijebu. Relatives eyed Walter with rising curiosity, while cousins whispered that Bisi had snagged a rich foreigner. The next day, they toured the neglected estate allegedly seized decades ago. Walter appeared shaken by tangible evidence of his family's misdeeds, yellowed contracts, testimonies from furious elders. Bisi observed him wrestle with guilt in a courtyard dinner under lantern light. He apologized formally, pledging to resolve the injustice. Some remained doubtful, but a few recognized sincerity in his voice. Sensing momentum, Bisi readied herself for rigorous negotiations that could restore her family's land and possibly deliver her own emotional closure. Beneath a spreading mango tree, Bisi's aunts and local leaders laid out stacks of documents proving the White family's land grab. Walter, accompanied by a lawyer, proposing returning Cape hassles and creating a fund to support local farmers. Tension periodically flared, with older relatives invoking memories of Bisi's father's indignation and poverty. Each outburst pricked Bisi's conscience. Recalling how her heartbreak had once seemed insurmountable, now she was part of an effort that might right a wrong older than her heartbreak, bridging two families entwined by injustice. Slowly, a preliminary agreement emerged: partial restitution of land to Bisi's kin, along with financial backing for community projects. Though suspicion lingered, Bisi's aunt seemed grudgingly thankful. The next morning, Bisi and Walter prepared to leave Nigeria so lawyers could finalize the paperwork. Her aunt pulled her aside, cautioning her not to trust lofty promises too blindly, but expressing guarded hope that Bisi had indeed found a better life abroad, and with a good man. Boarding the plane, Bisi felt both relief and renewed purpose. She realized her father's bitterness had seeped into her own sense of identity. By helping broker these talks, she was healing a wound she never knew ran so deep. Returning to London, Bisi noticed a shift in the penthouse. Mrs. Boyle eyed her with begrudging respect, while the staff displayed guarded curiosity, as though recognizing Bisi had ventured deeper into Mr. Whittaker's confidence. The midnight dinners continued, but Bisi sensed her role expanding beyond silent chef. Walter conferred with her on community funding ideas, listened to her insights, and revealed small glimpses of relief that he could finally confront his family's darkest legacy. Bisi, once only a sorrowful stranger in a foreign city, found herself an unlikely catalyst. Over the following weeks, as legal documents advanced the final land settlement, Bisi and Walter spent more time together. The discussions drifted from family deeds to personal memories, forging a fragile trust. Bisi admitted how her ex's betrayal convinced her no man was worthy of her heart again. Walter confessed his loneliness, maintaining elaborate midnight dinners to grant him strict control over who entered his world. Though they tiptoed around true confessions, tension between them evolved into awareness and attraction. Then a new corporate crisis flared. The rival CEO again tried to unseat Walter, claiming his personal crusades endangered profits. Another tense board meeting convened. Walter calmly outlined how his emerging African investments could be both ethical and lucrative. The board, swayed by evidence of tangible gains, reaffirmed Walter as CEO again. Elated, he asked Bisi for a late night walk along the Thames. Under the moonlight, he dropped to one knee, voice trembling with hope as he proposed. Memory flashed. Bisi's ex kneeling in feigned devotion, yet she saw earnest in Walter's eyes, an admission of flaws, regrets, and dreams. Heart-pounding, she said yes. News of their engagement sparked gossip. Some called Bisi a gold digger. Others saluted a cross-cultural romance. They married first in London, exchanging vows in an intimate chapel near the river, then flew to Nigeria for a Yoruba celebration, bursting with drums, dancing, and relatives who now saw Walter returning stolen land. In London, the midnight dinners evolved, still exclusive, but now more welcoming, freed from dark secrecy. Walter shared stories of his heritage, while Bisi's recipes dazzled a growing circle of appreciative diners. Dear listeners, heartbreak, betrayal, and old burdens cast shadows on our hopes. Yet, with empathy and truth, even ancient wounds can sprout blossoms of renewal. By trusting kindness over bitterness, we break cycles of pain, forging gentle connections, and righting lingering wrongs. Let us remember, no scar is too deep to mend when resilience and love guide us forward. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and share and comment for more stories.